Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Congresswoman, for your passion and background on this. She's being understated today. Dr. DeBoer, first of all, I want to acknowledge your resume. You went to the 2 best public universities in the country, the world. Go Bears, go Blue. I represent a part of the San Francisco Bay Area that has tech in the East Bay, but is also heavily industrialized. So we've had real challenges in the industrial sector with 5 refineries, chemical plants, manufacturing, although that's trying to rebound. So in California, I led a task force in the legislature, bipartisan, because we had eliminated a lot of our career tech infrastructure. And it was interesting going around the state and seeing how regionally we had gone away from that. We had heavily bought on the Bay Area that knowledge-based economy. Everybody was going to get a bachelor's degree, and the world had changed. So we have made really good progress on a bipartisan level in California about building back partnerships, career tech, and then with community college districts. The state California building and construction trades has changed dramatically. 80% of their members are minority and women. I was recently with them in a very disadvantaged community. You will remember this, Richmond, where we've got apprenticeship programs where kids from poverty are getting really good jobs in the industrial sector right out of college, $125,000, $150,000 a year. They are deliberately looking for kids who need opportunities. So I spent a lot of time with the Labor Institute at Berkeley, been to Michigan to talk to your folks. This is a real partnership. The employers are the ones who are pushing the hardest because they need this skilled workforce, and they need it generationally at a time that the demographics are a challenge, but also the needs on energy transition. And since there aren't a lot of deep water ports on the West Coast, it means Puget Sound, Long Beach in LA, and San Francisco. Trying to do that is very important for the global and the national economy. And it's sort of a missing part of our discussion here about how do we rebuild these scales, knowing that we're going to have energy transition for 2 or 3 generations of the workforce, and we're going to have to retrain those folks. We have to train them in the first place, but we have to retrain them as well. You want to train those IBW and Boilermakers, but you got to get ready for, they're going to be doing different work over this transition. Could you speak to that in your experience?
Absolutely. I'll actually reference economic history in responding to your question, because we are at a moment of transformation. And if we were to look to the past to kind of understand what might be coming in the future, I think we're sitting at a moment where there will be a proliferation of jobs in the next decade, 2 decades, that we do not yet know much about, right? These are going to be new to world occupations that we will have to figure out how to train a workforce for. I think what's exciting in looking at the data is that there are 70 million workers who are skilled through alternative routes, who are building skills in their jobs today, who could transfer a lot of those skills into the newer jobs that are coming online. I think how we now start to think about training programs to support them to make those transitions effectively and efficiently is a really important question for communities, because to your point, what is really interesting to study across the United States is regionally how many of these communities are performing for workers varies, and how we actually help communities recognize and understand where are there pockets of their workforce who are prepared to make these transitions immediately if they were given access to them is a really important question. And another really important question is, how do we take the workforce we currently have and upskill them in the specific skills they need for these new jobs that are entering our regions?
So, and that's really important, and Dr. Kimmerer, if we have any time, so succinctly, in a very big question, the cultural problem, and I love this hearing. There's a place for bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, doctorate degrees, but as people who work for a living have told me, both union and non-union, it's about RESPECT. How do you get kids to choose the right career, have their choices, and have that competency? So the cultural problem is a big thing. We want to value higher education, but it's not for everybody, and people who work with their hands deserve the same infrastructure and respect. Could you speak to that briefly?
Sure. I think it's actually why it's really important to understand the biases that we bring to our language. A lot of our language about the American workforce is deficit-based. We think it's important to bring a different narrative to workers who are gaining skills through many different pathways. It's why we've termed workers who have not gone to four-year degree program stars. They're workers who are skilled, but through alternative routes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A longer conversation, but I really appreciate this today.